Hello friends, so today you're actually going to have two short videos. We're going to learn how to add decimals with base 10 blocks, and then we're going to learn how to subtract decimals with base 10 blocks. And I'm going to split them up into two separate videos for you. That way you can watch them as many times as you need, and it's easier to go back to exactly what you need to go back to, okay? So let's go ahead and get started. When we add decimals, we're going to start today with practicing with base 10 blocks so we can get a good visual of how to add decimals, okay? So when we add decimals, it's really important to know how to represent those base 10 blocks, right? So if we have a whole number like 1, 2, 3, 4, any number in our ones place, which is the number right in front of that decimal where that 0 is, we represent a whole number by a square. So we draw that square right there, that represents one whole, right? Okay? Now, when we get into our tenths place, we use a straight line to represent 1/10. So in our first one, we have 3/10, so we would need 3 of those straight lines, okay? When we get into our hundredths place, which is the second digit after the decimal, we represent that just with a dot. And since I have 4 hundredths, I would need how many dots? 4, okay? So this is actually a little bit easier than you may think. You just have to practice a few times and then it'll make a lot more sense. So let's get started so we can start practicing, okay? So the first thing that you do when you are adding decimals with base 10 blocks is you need to write out or draw out your numbers that you're adding in base 10 blocks, okay? So we have 34 hundredths. How many squares do I need? I don't need any, right? So we're going to move to our next number. Our 3 is in our tenths place, and we just said we represent tenths by that straight line. How many of those lines or how many tenths do I have? 3. So all I'm going to do is draw 1, 2, 3 straight lines to represent my 3/10. But now I need to represent my hundredths. We represent hundredths by that dot, so how many dots am I going to need? How many hundredths do I have? 4, so I'm just going to draw 4 dots. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that represents 34 hundredths. We're going to do the same thing with our 27 hundredths. How many squares or how many whole numbers do I have? 0. I don't have any ones, right? So I don't need any squares. We're going to move to my tenths place. How many lines do I need? Because that is how I represent my tenths. 2. And how many hundredths do I have? 7. So what am I going to draw to represent my hundredths? 7 dots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. For me, I am going to group my like objects together. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tenths. So I'm going to draw 5 tenths. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Because I'm just adding these, right? I'm adding them together. And I have 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 dots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. How many hundredths does it take to make a tenth? It takes 10 hundredths to make 1/10. How many hundredths do I have here? 11, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to exchange 10 of my hundredths for a tenth. So I'm going to cash these in, right? Get rid of these. And what am I going to get in return? 1/10. So I'm adding a line. I gave 10 hundredths and I got 1/10 because I can't put a 10 in the spot for one digit, can I? I couldn't put a 10 where that 7 was. I can only put one number there, and 10 has 2 digits in the number 10. So I had 11, so I needed to exchange 10 of those to get 1/10. Okay? Now, let's see it. How many do I have left? I'm going to group my objects together again. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tenths. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tenths, and 1 hundredth. And the way that I would write that is just how you think. I have 6 tenths and 1 hundredth, so that is just 0.61, and I'll write it up here, 0.61, because that is 61 hundredths. I have 6 tenths, and 1 hundredth, 1 hundredth. Okay, we're going to do one more together, and then we will move into subtracting. So we have 1 and 47 hundredths plus 21 hundredths. So first things first, I need to draw out my numbers in base 10 blocks, right? So I'm going to give you a second to do that yourself while I'm erasing this, and then we will jump right in. Okay, so we have 1, and that 1, how do we represent that 1? We haven't done that yet, but we talked about it. A square. So we need, for 1 and 47 hundredths, the first thing we need is a square, because that shows us that we have 1. How are we going to represent our 4 tenths? By drawing 4 what? Of our straight lines. That's how we represent tenths. 1, 2, 3, 4. How am I going to represent my 7 hundredths? 7 dots, that's right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now, I need to draw my 21 hundredths. How am I going to represent my ones place? I don't have any ones, right? So I don't have to worry about it. I just start with what I have, which is my tenths. How many tenths do I have in 21 hundredths? 2. There's a number 2 in the tenths place. So I need to draw 2 tenths. And I have 1 hundredth. So I just need to draw 1 dot to represent that hundredth. Now I'm going to group my like objects together. Uh-oh. Alrighty. So I have 1 square. I didn't have any squares in my second one, so that's just the 1 square, right? I'm adding these together. How many tenths did I have? Let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tenths. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tenths. How many hundredths did I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I can't regroup, can I? Do I have 10 or more thousandths, or hundredths, sorry, do I have 10 or more hundredths? No. And I don't have 10 or more tenths either. So guess what? This is all I have to do. Now I just have to write that in number form. So how many ones do I have? Just 1. So I have 1, 1. Okay, next we get to our tenths. So remember, we still have to put that decimal, because when we move from 1 to tenths, there's a decimal in between. How many tenths do I have? 5, 6. How many hundredths do I have? I do them in 5 so I can count easily. 5, 6, 7, 8. So we just found out that 1 and 47 hundredths plus 21 hundredths equals 1 and 68 hundredths, okay? Awesome job, guys. You are gonna have a couple to try on your own. It's gonna be multiple choice, so you'll just need a piece of paper to work them out yourself. We're gonna go over subtraction as well. So tune into the next video below.